whilst it is in human nature to engage in conversation with others, to be friendly, unfortunately, this is not the time to do that. So even if you run into your next door neighbour in the shopping centre, in the Coles, whilst you're at Coles or Woolworths or Aldi or any other grocery shop, don't start up a conversation. Now is the time for minimising your interactions with others. Even if you've got a mask, do not think that affords total protection. We want to be absolutely sure that as we go about our daily lives, we do not come into contact with anyone else that would pose a risk.
We will share with you the most up-to-date information daily. You can trust us as a source of that information. You can also trust the Director General of Health and the Ministry of Health. For that information, do feel free to visit at any time to clarify any rumour you may hear, covid19.govt.nz. Otherwise, dismiss anything else. We will continue to be your single source of truth. We will provide information frequently. We will share everything we can, everything else you see, a grain of salt. And so I really ask people to focus on that.
The most egregious example of that appears to be this text which originated in Malaysia and has become a viral hoax in Australia and in New Zealand. How irresponsible is it the people that are sharing that news of a lockdown imminent in New Zealand?
Yeah, and look, that's the kind of thing that adds to the anxiety that people feel. So I continue to share the message. New Zealanders must prepare, but do not panic, prepare. And when you see those messages, remember that unless you hear it from us, it is not the truth. And I really ask people, just visit covid19.govt.nz. It has all of the up-to-date information, and we will continue to provide everything you need to know.
What the fuck? Fuck that!
Army patrols hit the streets of Sydney on Monday to help enforce coronavirus curbs as Australia struggles to stop the Delta variant from spreading. Around 300 unarmed military personnel have been tasked with going door to door, checking that people who have tested positive are isolating at home. They're also accompanying police officers on the hunt for rule breakers, combing neighborhoods that have emerged as hotspots as the country's largest city enters its 6th week of lockdown.
More than 10 million Australians feel like they're out of luck. Sydney's lockdown is here to stay until November, and they're already planning yet another extension in Melbourne. The strain of the Delta outbreak is showing, and that it's going to take a long time for life to return to normal.
Koshi, the New South Wales Premier has indicated there'll be at least 11 more weeks of harsh restrictions. The state has recorded 344 new local cases. At least 65 were infectious in the community, and 2 more people have died, including a man in his 30s. 3 major changes have been made to public health orders to toughen the virus fight. An extra 500 troops will be requested to help enforce compliance on Sydney streets. The singles bubble is being tightened to close loopholes, and there'll be limits on residents travelling to regional areas. There have been angry scenes in Melbourne after its 6th lockdown was extended for another week. Victoria recorded 20 new local infections. 5 mystery cases are causing a major concern, and there's a surge in exposure sites in the city's western suburbs now. Here's Koshi.
Let's get the latest from our team of reporters. Amber Laidler is in Sydney. Amber, police will now be given new powers to enforce the public health orders.
Good morning, Koshi. Yes, it's understood that legislation is currently being drafted that will be implemented in the next 48 hours or so that will give police additional powers to enforce COVID compliance. The Police Commissioner and the Police Minister appeared at what is being described as a heated crisis cabinet meeting yesterday, where they argued changes had to be made because at this point there are just too many legal loopholes in the restrictions, and it's just making them too hard to be enforced. Changes that are in talks to be implemented include a tightening of those public public health orders that will close some of those loopholes, including the one that allowed people to travel out of Sydney. There could be some changes to the singles bubble. Hundreds of additional defence personnel are also set to be deployed across the streets of Sydney, and police will be given those additional powers to crack down on people who are breaking the rules. It was a very grim press conference yesterday. Premier Gladys Berejiklian confirming restrictions are set to remain in place for at least another 11 weeks, right through September and into October, until we reach that 70% vaccination mark. More schools have now been impacted by COVID cases. Today, the Wheeler Heights Public School in Sydney's north and Luddenham Public in Sydney's west are closed. Students on both campuses testing positive there, and the virus continues to spill into the region's 8 local council areas northwest of Sydney, including Narromine, Canamble, Walgett and Burke, are all now living under the same stay-at-home orders as Greater Sydney. Koshi.
Nathan Curry in Melbourne. How much longer could the city be in lockdown for?
Potentially close to the end of the month, Koshi. We just copped a 7-day extension, and now the Herald Sun is reporting this morning that the state government is already considering extending that by a further week. That is just how concerned they are about this outbreak and those mystery cases. So by next week, overall, Melburnians will have spent 200 days in lockdown since the pandemic began. That is more than most parts of the world, and judging by the pictures last night, it is clear there is just so much frustration in Melbourne at the moment. We saw anti-lockdown protesters take to the streets once more. This time around, though, police were ready for them. They cracked down pretty hard and made 73 arrests in the city last night. Koshi?
Amanda Backman in Adelaide. Now, SA Health are saying our returning Olympic athletes are going to have to go into a second round of quarantine after returning from Tokyo and doing 14 days in Sydney.
Good morning, Koshi. That's right. This will affect 16 South Australian athletes who are currently in hotel quarantine in Sydney. Now, this rule is the same for every South Australian, but the Australian Olympic Committee says that it is cruel and that it will jeopardise their mental health, that it is indeed uncaring. SA Health says, though, that it wrote to the committee and told them on July 30th that this was the case. And this rule of this double quarantine was brought in after our last cluster and lockdown. That lockdown was sparked by a case, an international traveller who somehow caught COVID whilst he was doing his quarantine period in Sydney. SA Health so far is standing firm on this. It says the athletes will be able to quarantine that additional 14 days in a Medi hotel, or they can apply to quarantine at home.
Amanda, can you find out if that earlier case was double vaccinated and had also been tested every day for the 3 weeks before they got to Sydney? That'd be good.
I can, Koshi.
OK, thank you for that. Taylor Aiken in Canberra, we've hit a new milestone with the vaccine rollout.
Yes, the vaccine rollout really starting to gather momentum. Yesterday, more than 250,000 people rolled up their sleeves to get a jab. It now brings the total number of doses to over 14.2 million nationally, with over 45% of the eligible population receiving at least one dose. New South Wales leading the way with 6.5 million doses, closely followed by Victoria and Queensland on just over 4 million, WA on 2.1 million. South Australia, however, lagging well behind on just 1.4 million doses. The government is saying it's striving for that 70% of the population to be fully vaccinated milestone before lockdowns can become a thing of the past. Koshi?
All right. Thank you, Taylor.